your character, for me, is just the heart of this film. Because everything in that conversation that we just saw really represents what's going on in Siobhan's inner world, where, you know, she's like, well, do we have a choice if our life is dull? Do we get to just choose what we want? And so she's kind of like representing so many of the themes. But to go back a bit, tell me what Martin told you about this film before you started work on it, and what did he tell you about Siobhan?
So he didn't really tell me anything about the character. The script a good few years ago was quite different. It was like that storyline, and then there was a whole other storyline of this other character that comes to the island, and it was all a bit convoluted. And then he kind of parked it for a bit, and then after 3 billboards, he had dinner with him, and he was kind of debating what he was going to do next. And that's the thing you don't think about, like when something does really well, it's kind of like you have to follow it. And that's kind of a tricky position to be in. And so it was like, what will I follow it? So he said he would think he was going to go back and do something Irish, revisit that Irish script again. And obviously I was thrilled, because I knew there was a part for me in it. And also because that the Irish plays, I felt, were so brilliant, and like not a lot of people had seen them. Like they knew Martin's films, but like, and they were like, "Oh, these films are great." And I was like, "You've not seen anything yet. Like the plays are amazing, and they're so moving, and there's so much depth to them." So I thought this was like one of his plays, but a movie, so everyone would get to see it. And it was more about the 2 men and like a breakup, and he was going through a breakup at the time, and so he just kind of really leaned into the sadness of a breakup and that feeling of like, why don't you like me? And when you did like me, how come you don't like me anymore? And that feeling that we all have felt at some point or another. Or been the person who dumped somebody as well, you know, where you're like, I don't want to be mean, but like, I've had enough of you kind of thing. And then Siobhan was just, he didn't say much at all to me. There was only a couple of things, like a couple of versions where Siobhan was talking to the policeman, and she said a comment to the policeman that he was like, "What do you think of this comment?" And we both kind of agreed it was a little bit like the characters I had played in his plays, and it wasn't really like Siobhan. So it was like, it's a great line, but I just don't know, like it's a little too cheeky for her. Like it's a bit more like Mairead, just one of the other characters. He was like, "You're right, let's keep, we'll have to keep it more a little different." So there was only tiny things like that we did, but other than that, he just kind of left it up to me, and in rehearsals then we sort of figured it out.
Wow. So of course, Brendan and Colin had worked together in Bruges. Tell me about kind of connecting with their kind of thing that they had with each other and kind of fitting into that, and what it was like just being part of that group shooting.
Yeah, that's gas, because they'd done in Bruges, but I was like, yeah, but I've done 4 other jobs with Martin, so I'm teacher's pet, clearly. And I was too. So I didn't let that faze me at all. I was like, yeah, I was working with Martin before anybody knew who he even, before he was so famous. So I didn't feel intimidated by the fact that they had done a movie at all. And in all fairness, like the plays are harder work, and you get paid way less. So again, I earn my place to be there. Thanks a million. And so I didn't mind. I just felt a little bit like it was a rehearsal room. Like we rehearsed for 2 weeks beforehand. And all pretty much the other actors had done Martin's plays. So it felt to me like a play, and when you're doing a play, there isn't the sense of like, this person's the famous person and this person, it's all like a kind of a democracy and you're all equal, and so that's kind of how it felt. And in all fairness to Colin, he didn't behave in that way, he did kind of fit in with everybody, and it was just everybody wanting it to be very good and put in the work.
I have to ask, they say don't ever work with children or animals. There is so many scenes where you're dealing with like a miniature donkey. There's even there's a cow, there's a horse in the kitchen.
Yeah.
tell me about trying to deal with that.
Oh my God,
how was it?
gorgeous. The little calf is called, because you still have Charlie. Charlie, oh my God, he's like a big cow now. Oh my God. Yeah, and I love animals, like, to be honest with you, a little bit more than humans, so I love working with the animals. And I had done a TV show years ago all about racehorses, and I was a jockey in the show, so I got really used to like working with animals. You know, and just like you have to just be ready because you just don't know what take is going to work. So you have to be ready and do it perfectly, quickly and immediately. And then also be, you know, really calm and like patient and gentle around them and stuff. So I loved working with the animals. It just was a little tricky because we would shoot our stuff first, like the close-ups and the wides or whatever. Not the wides because you'd have the animal in the way, but the close-ups and stuff. And then when we'd done that, then we'd bring in the animal and do the wide, and it would all be about like how Jenny is. So we just have to keep doing it till we got Jenny doing it exactly. But Jenny had a friend donkey with her. Guys, it was the sweetest. The two of them would come in raincoats. Sometimes they had these little raincoats on them. I swear to God, tiny little raincoats. And they'd come in and as long as Rosie, her friend, was on the set, she was okay. Because she was like, oh, Rosie's there, so it can't be that bad. Like, as long as my friend's there. So I'd probably be beside Rosie, like doing my camera lines, and Colin and the donkey would be there. So it just added to the beauty of it for me, to be honest, all the animals, because they're so spiritual.
There is this scene that I really wanted to talk to you about that just killed me, where Barry's character, who is just this poor boy who's being abused by his dad, who's a policeman, and he's just so lost and lonely. And he says to Siobhan, you know, that he declares his love, and she very kindly rebuffs him. And he just goes, I'm going to mess up the line, but it's something.
There goes that dream.
Yeah, there goes that dream. And I feel like that is what this film is about, because there's Colin who's realising that his dream is slipping away because his focus is elsewhere. And then there's Siobhan who realises her life is about taking care of her naive, slightly hopeless brother. And where's the line between self-preservation and kindness? And that's really what this film is about, right? So tell me about what this kind of brought up for you and how it affected you playing this role, because it's a lot of big questions.
Yeah, and that's like just the tip of the iceberg, because there's also, you know, just like love lost and all those other kind of things. I mean, for what it brought up for me, like taking away me being Siobhan, right? Let's just say me being a viewer of the movie. It was a touchy subject for me because I can't bear being dumped. Like I really can't bear. I take it real badly. But like, but in terms of like art isn't important and sacrifices to make for art. I do feel somewhat guilty as an actress sometimes. I'm like, God, it is kind of selfish. Like, am I really doing any good for anybody? Like, why am I so driven to be an actress? What good is it really? But I kind of justify it because I, you know, use my money and I have horses and I kind of adopt animals that aren't, you know, and so I feel like, you know, I'm kind of helping the planet a bit. And so that makes me feel not so selfish about being an artist. But I do think it is a question, you know, because not all art changes people, you know. And that's why with Colum's character, I was a bit like, yeah, buddy, what if your tune is shit and it doesn't stand the test of time? And he's a bit arrogant to think his tune is going to, you know, live on or whatever. But I suppose what it brought up for me, for Siobhan, is like, I suppose the loneliness I really wanted to kind of show, you know, because I think a lot of people are really lonely, and I think you can be lonely in a couple too, and I think you can be lonely, you know, in a city, and I think loneliness is like kind of part of being human. But like, God forbid you say you're lonely, you know, or it's like, geez, you know what I mean? It's really the same, like if you cry, everyone's like, oh God, she's crying, like it's terrible. Well, like, you know, and it's so normal to do those things. So I like that's when she's crying at night time too. I found that like really sad too, you know, like that she couldn't do it in front of anybody or whatever. I don't know, like I can't say there was a conclusive thing I thought at the end. It just is so beautiful that it just kind of stays with you, all of it. And yet it's done in such a humorous way, because I feel like if these messages weren't in a funny way, it'd be like, God man, another heavy movie to add to my heavy life. You know?
Yeah, we were just laughing backstage about how sometimes you just need to go home and watch The White Lotus.
Yeah, something relaxed, something funny. This movie's funny.
Did Martin explain to you, I know you said that he didn't say that much in the beginning, but I think that Inisherin for him was representative of something. The island itself was kind of, as you say, it was inspired by the plays that he'd written. But what did it mean, what did you understand that it meant in terms of like what it represented?
I suppose, like, you know, it's kind of like his plays in the sense that when the film's over, you still think that actual place existed and all those little characters are still kind of going on about their lives or whatever. He's really good at that, like taking these little characters that really feel real and you think about them afterwards. It was originally called the Banshees of Inisherin, which is an actual island, because he'd written 3 plays and the third of a trilogy, and I'd done 2 of them, and the third one was the Banshees of Inisherin. He always thought it was crap, so he never kind of put it on. And so then he used the title for the film, but then he didn't want to be specifically just an Irish island, so that it could be an island that anyone, you know, you could think about that island in like Japan or wherever. So that's why he made it a fictional island with Inisherin. And I suppose just the nature aspect. I know he was I always loved Terrence Malick, and so there's a beautiful nature. Like there's no cars allowed on Inishmore where he filmed it and stuff, and all the nature is like another character in the film. So I knew that was important to him.
How long did you spend on the shoot? On this island with no cars?
On the island, the no car island was actually fab. Like I loved it. Yeah, it was really.
Was there cell service?
Yeah, there was.
Oh damn! Better without.
I wouldn't have minded. Yeah, without. Get rid of it for a while. We can chat. So no, but if you order stuff on, you know, from the mainland, it takes ages to get there. So that was kind of nice. I liked it. But I mean, after a month, it'd probably do your head in a bit. But we were there like 3 weeks, and then we went to another island for 5 weeks, I think. And the other island was a little tougher because it was wide, more spread out, and it was all the stuff. Me and Colin, the stuff we did in the house was in the first island, so I got, you know, that was kind of nice, just the 2 of us in the house. But the big island was all the stuff where I was like sad, and you know, we were not together, brother and sister weren't together anymore, and it just kind of, that got a little bit harder for me and the second island.
Well, we're running out of time, but just to wrap up, I just want to ask, what's a scene that you're most proud of from this film?
Oh gosh, God, that'd be hard, because you know, all of them. It's funny, I still remember all the lines when I watched that one there. I suppose the one at the table with Barry, with Dominic. Wild, was I never wild? Do you know that scene when he's like driving her up the wall? I really like that scene because I just knew I had to drive it, and I knew it was also like Siobhan getting to kind of get a bit of something out, or getting to, I think he hit so many nerves in that scene, like, you know, I think there was a bit like, I wish I could be wild, like he was, so there was just, I just loved that scene, and I kind of wanted to wipe the floor with Colin and Barry, to be honest with you.
And you did.
Not to be competitive or anything,
But you did.
I know it's a team sport, blah, 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 you know.
Well, congratulations, Kerry. Thank you so much for being here.